Go for it.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Super excited to connect with you today. I want to give a big shout out to Courtney and Lacey and everyone on the Vandy team who's bringing you these awesome sessions to kick off the year. And I want to do it in special style because, as I was mentioning to the first folks on the line, we're going to be using the chat a lot today. So please do me a huge favor, come over to the Zoom chat and send a little love where love is due to your amazing Vandy career team. So it could be heart eyes or star eyes, whatever you want to share. Send your favorite emoji over to Courtney and the team because they deserve it. They've been working really hard all summer to get these programs ready for you. All right, thanks, Chris. There we go. Let's get this party started. Okay, so to dive in, a little bit about your speaker today. As I was indicating, I have been in your shoes in the sense that I was in business school a decade ago, and I came in as a kindergarten teacher. So you might think, oh my goodness, I've got a steep hill to climb as an international student. Imagine if you had never been in business before, literally knew nothing about that entire world. And yet I walked out with access to all the opportunities I was most excited about. And yet the one place that really transformed my career was none other than LinkedIn. And that's because I have to admit, even after I got my jobs in business school, I still didn't really understand how the process worked. Maybe I got lucky, maybe it was just sort of a random fluke. But getting to work at LinkedIn was like peering into the black box of the hiring process. And I finally understood, aha, this is how it all happens. And so I've been on a mission for the last decade to share those secrets around the world and to help students just like yourselves land the jobs of your dreams. So folks shared at the beginning that they're interested in banking, consulting, fintech, agriculture, manufacturing, all these great spaces. I'm going to show you exactly how to break in starting today. I'm going to cover 4 steps. Everything from how the hiring process works in the US, because it's not at all what it seems like on the surface, all the way to how do you dig in and get access to the best opportunities, no matter how selective. And to make the most of the session, all I ask is 3 things in return. Number 1, as a former teacher, old habits die hard. So I'm going to be throwing a lot of pop quizzes your way. I would love for you to answer those in the chat ASAP. Number 2, if you want to make the most of the session, don't just answer quizzes, actually volunteer for live demos because I'm going to demonstrate all the most important stuff. Anyone who volunteers for a demo will get a free copy of my brand new LinkedIn book, the only top Amazon bestseller in this category. It's normally $20, but it's free for anyone who volunteers today. And then third and finally, I would love for you to ask questions at any point, not just at the end of the session. You can ask those in the chat or by raising your hand on Zoom. And if you ask a question that I answer, I'll also send you a copy of the book. So with all that in mind, let's start with the first step, which is how do people actually hire in the US? So think about this. If you had 3 candidates who are all applying for the same job, maybe at Goldman Sachs, maybe at McKinsey, who do you think is going to get that job? Is it the candidate A, who's awesome at acing tests, gets an incredible GPA? Candidate B, who is a really great consultant and is a master strategist? Or candidate C, someone who understands how other people think and has incredible empathy for others in the process? So what's your best guess? A, B, or C? Who do you think tends to get the job in the US? So Palak kicks us off with C. Pramod says B. Chris says C. Fabiano says C. Alexander says B. Abhishek says C. Youngzu's riding 2 horses here, B and C. Why ride 1 horse when you can ride 2? Asas says C. Minwoo says B. Herman says C. So a lot of different ideas. And I will tell you the flat out truth is, having now been a recruiter, a hiring manager, and a job seeker many times over, the answer is C. And let me explain why. So first of all, again, the surface. America puts out this incredible branding to the world. We have great marketers in America. We say, America is a shining light for meritocracy. Anyone who comes here is going to get access to opportunities that's directly equivalent to your talent and your ability to work hard. But here's the truth. At the end of the day, the hiring process is not a technology-driven meritocracy where jobs are handed out relative to your skill, but instead a human process, like all of our processes. And we all know that we humans, as great as we are, have our foibles, have our flaws. And so just having great test scores, just having the right experience is not enough to get you hired, because at the end of the day, it's all about what's happening inside the mind of the recruiters that shapes their perception. And so what we're going to be talking about today are the 3 things that every recruiter wants. And I know because I've been a recruiter before myself. So first of all, put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter. Use that empathy superpower that makes you a great business student. I have to fill 20 different jobs and each job has from anywhere from 500 to 1,000 candidates. Do the math on that. That is at least 10,000 candidates that I am juggling at any given time. So what does that mean? What are the implications? Well, first of all, I do not have time to get to know you, to understand you deeply, to figure out where you might fit in my organization. Instead, I am like a heat-seeking missile for obvious candidates. Do you fit the mold for a product manager, an iBanker, or consultant? Ding, 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 we've got a winner. Time to move on. Everyone else, you're out of here. In addition, I can't be the one putting in the energy. I don't have the time for that. I need people who are making it easy for me, who are demonstrating their eagerness, who are reaching out and engaging. And then finally, I don't want to have to take a risk on an unproven stranger. I want someone who I can trust, who's going to make me look good to my bosses. Because there's that famous saying, no one ever got fired for hiring IBM as a corporate partner. Well, no recruiter ever got fired for hiring someone who was referred by someone inside the organization. So your job is not necessarily to ace your tests or even to be great at the job itself, but instead to focus on serving the recruiter. Make yourself obvious, make yourself eager, make yourself validated. And we're going to talk about all that in the next few sections. So let's talk about the first step. How do you even find who's sponsoring in the first place? Because I know that's a tricky piece. So question for you. Which of these three firms do you think has sponsored the most product managers across America this year alone? Is it A, Amazon, B, Google, or C, Facebook/Meta? What's your best guess? Okay, Sebastian says C, Alexander says B, Abhishek says C, I see Minwoo says A, Amag says A, Abhishek says A, Chris says A, so mostly A's. And indeed, the A's are correct. And if you ever want to prove it out, all you've got to do is go over to myvisajobs.com. And I'm sure you've been here a million times before, but basically on myvisajobs.com, you can actually start to see all the employer sponsorships year in and year out. So that's a great resource. And I won't spend a lot of time there. Although I was just hearing from Courtney that you actually have a new tool at Owen called Interstride, which may also have some of this data. But obviously follow the data, find those good opportunities out there. Now, that being said, the hack that I want to show you today is the ability to find sponsors, not just based on a national level, but on a school-specific level following your undergraduate alma mater. So in this case, someone who went to IIM Bangalore could discover that hundreds of their alumni have come over to the US, and these are the firms that tend to sponsor. So to demonstrate how this works, I would love my first volunteer to raise their hand on Zoom, and I'm going to show you how to find sponsorship opportunities based on your undergraduate alma mater. So again, anyone who raises their hand gets a free copy of my book and one-on-one coaching. Who's going to be our first brave volunteer today? Just raise your hand. All right, Palak, you have been fast. I love that. Feel free to unmute your line, Palak. I would love to chat.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry, I can't switch on my camera yet. Is
Oh,
that
no
fine?
worries. Yeah, the audio is the key part. And so how is everything going so far? Are you just starting your program?
Yes. Actually, I just concluded my first week of school yesterday.
Oh, congratulations. Okay. 1 week down, just like 40 more to go. You'll be an MBA. Or are you getting an MBA?
Yep, I am.
Okay, very cool. And Palak, where are you coming from?
I come from India, Delhi, India. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then where did you go to school in India? Did you go to a school in Delhi, somewhere else?
Yep, I went to Delhi University.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so Delhi University, massive university, for those who don't know. And the beautiful thing about coming from a massive place like Delhi is there are so many alumni, so many people who've gone through that path and landed great jobs in the US. So check this out. If I want to figure out what are the best opportunities for me coming from Delhi University, what I want to use is the alumni tool on LinkedIn. This is actually a tool I worked on when I was at LinkedIn. So it's kind of like my digital baby. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Delhi page right over here. I'm going to come to the alumni tab. And then sure enough, almost 1 million alumni, Palak. Did you know that?
Wow, no.
Yeah, so I mean, like Vanderbilt is huge. University of Michigan, where I went, is huge. But I put those two schools together and I think we don't have 800,000 alumni. So what a great place to come from. Okay, so now here's the deal. Obviously, the majority of alumni are still in India, and that's fine. But a pretty big chunk, 25,000, have come to the United States. And so if you filter and focus on those alumni, you now have a list of the companies that by definition are most likely to sponsor, and not just sponsor in general, sponsor specifically alumni from your school.
Yeah.
So are there any organizations here that are especially of interest to you, Palak?
Yep, actually the first three.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so we were just talking about Amazon. They're obviously a big sponsor. So it's Microsoft, so it's Google, no surprise.
Yeah.
And what you can do then is you can come down here and you can say, hey, I see here that Shrey ultimately went from Delhi University, where he graduated back in 2008, and ultimately got his MBA in the US and landed a great job at Google.
Right.
And so Palak, what I would highly recommend doing is reaching out to Shrey, because Shrey is going to be able to give you insight into how was he sponsored? What kinds of hoops did he have to jump through? How easy was it?
Yeah.
Would that information be useful to you, Palak?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've actually been chatting to a couple alumni about that, and this would be really helpful.
Wonderful. And we're going to talk about reaching out to Vanderbilt alumni in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I say start with your undergraduate alma mater, because these are the people who've made the leap. And why blaze your own trail when you can follow in their footsteps, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So any questions about that process, Palak, in terms of how you would generate this list or how you would find the right alumni to reach out to?
I think like this is a good tool, but I'm just concerned about how many people would be actually like receptive to responding, especially because Delhi University is a very big university, like you've seen,
Exactly.
800,000 people, and there are like multiple colleges within Delhi University. So the mechanics are very good. Like I can reach out to people. I'm just concerned about whether I will get responses.
Yes, that's a good question. And you know your university's culture best. And I realize that America is somewhat unique in the sense of alumni feel obligated to help each other.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed, however, in working with international students, both at Michigan and then across the world, is that the farther away they are from their university, the more that identity matters. So for example, if you were in Delhi, Palak,
Yeah.
and you met someone from the University of Delhi, how surprising would that be?
Not very surprising.
Exactly, right? Everyone practically, has some connection one way or another. Whereas if you're on the other side of the world, and then all of a sudden you meet someone who has this really interesting commonality with you,
Yeah.
I think it actually means a lot more, because now you're kind of in this adventure together. And so I'm sure there are going to be some people who say, oh, I don't have time to talk to anyone. That's fine. But I guarantee if you reach out to several of these people, at least a few of them will be happy to share their experience.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, Palak. Well, I'm going to send you a free copy of the book afterwards. So just shoot me a line on LinkedIn, and I'll give you that contact info at the end.
Yeah.
Before we move on, let me just see if there are any questions about this process, because I want to make sure that you have a sense of what's my realistic universe. And so if you have a question about how do you find the right opportunities, how do you find the right alumni, you can either ask it in the chat or you can raise your hand right now. And while you do that, let me just get the My Visa Jobs link pulled up. I believe they changed their URL. Here we go. Aha, so myvisajobs.com. I'm sure you've all seen this before, so I don't want to belabor it, but you can see, top H-1B employers. You can do it by title. You can say, hey, I want to see everyone who's hiring product managers. So we search for that. And voila, here's that data we were talking about. And it looks like actually for 2022, Facebook has taken the lead. So this is an interesting report that you might want to review. Okay, sounds like no questions so far, which is fine. But again, if you do ask a question today, you are also entitled to a free copy of the book. For now, let's go on to the next step, which is, okay, anyone can figure out what the opportunities are, but how do I actually get those opportunities? How do I stand out in this crowded field? So next question for you. If you were a recruiter on LinkedIn and you were searching for talent, as every recruiter does around the world, what's the first thing you would search for? Is it a degree? I need an MBA or an MFE. I need someone from a specific school, Vanderbilt, or University of Michigan, or I need someone who can do a specific function, product manager, banker, consultant. What do you think, A, B, or C? So Minwoo says C, Amag says C, Palak says B, Amrita says C, Alexander says C, Youngzu says C, Vishal says C, Pramod says C. Almost everyone is saying C. You are all correct. And I want to really bring this out here because I'm going to come back to those first principles. As much as we Americans like to think that we're so exceptional and so fair and tolerant, America is not the meritocracy we claim it to be. Instead, it's all about how do individual recruiters make decisions inside their minds. And so we talked about this idea of recruiters want obvious candidates, eager candidates, validated candidates. Well, guess what? No recruiter wants just a generic candidate who says, hey, I am an MBA student at the university or at Vanderbilt University, or I am an MBA student at the Owen School. Instead, they need someone who can actually do the specific job with the specific skills. And the challenge is, I see so many students on LinkedIn who only have generic profiles. Here's my degree, here's my school. When in fact, it's students like Maru-san who's actually going to get reached out to by recruiters because he's clear about what he can do. Here's the value that I can offer to your organization. I've made myself obvious. So what I would love to do is to make one lucky Vandy student's profile really obvious and really amazing through a free profile makeover right now. All you got to do is be the first person to raise your hand, and you get that as well as a copy of the book. Vishal was super fast. He would be great on Jeopardy. So Vishal, feel free to unmute. I'd love to chat. Hey there, Vishal.
Hey, hi Jeremy, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome. And Vishal, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you coming from? Where are you in your MBA or business school journey?
Yeah, so I come from Bangalore, India, and I studied mechanical engineering in my undergrad, and then I worked in consulting for 4 years.
Very
And
cool.
my time in consulting, I worked 3 years in strategy and 1 year in execution. And I
Awesome.
plan to go back to strategy consulting after my MBA.
Love it. Okay, so you're in really good shape because I know for a fact that a lot of the folks on the line are career changers, and they're looking to not only change geography, but also change job title. You just want to double down in that space in the US. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you're in good shape. Let's make sure that your profile is ready to be obvious. So first little test here is, imagine that you're a recruiter on LinkedIn and you're looking for a strategy consultant. So that's what you plug in. Because again, you're always thinking, who's the most obvious, this totally perfect fit candidate? So I start with the job title. And then tell me this, Vishal, when we look at these top results, what do Rashi and Ben and Jazz and Joshua all have in common?
They all have the word strategy consultant on their description.
Exactly. And which part of their profile do they have it in particular?
Their description.
Yeah, and we call this the headline on LinkedIn, this little piece of text that basically goes with you wherever you go on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn kind of has this holy trinity. Everywhere you appear, it's your name, it's your profile photo, and it's your headline. So it's really critical. And that leads to our first big insight, Vishal, which is that absolutely keywords are important, but it turns out that one keyword is more important than all the others, and that is the job title, because that's what recruiters start with. And then one part of your profile is more important than any other, which is your headline. And that's because it's the hardest section of LinkedIn to gain. It's limited to the fewest number of characters, and therefore it's the most authentic signal of who you are and what you can do. So with that in mind, let's come over to LinkedIn. And Vishal, do you mind if I pull up your profile, not to criticize, but to give it some love?
Yeah, sure. You can just search for Vishal Kannan, V-I-K-N-N.
And Vishal, or actually, I want to even give a shout out to Vishal here. Would everyone please send a lot of love Vishal's way in the chat, because it takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there. And so I want to just celebrate the fact that Vishal and others are really putting themselves out to help everyone else learn. So send a lot of love because they are helping everyone through their openness. Okay, so here's Vishal's profile. Now, based on what we just talked about, Vishal, what might you do with your own headline, AKA your most important section, to make sure that recruiters are finding you when they run their searches? What do you have to get into there?
So based on what you said, I think I would make it aspiring strategy consultant, MBA 24, Owen Graduate School of Management.
Yeah, so all of this is great because it helps you stand out. It says, hey, I'm getting this awesome credential from an awesome school. But the kind of sad thing about LinkedIn's algorithm, even in 2022, is it's not that sophisticated. And so consulting and strategy sounds like strategy consultant, but it may not be a perfect match in the algorithm's eyes. So definitely get credit for the specific job title, strategy consultant. And here's the beautiful thing. You are absolutely right, Vishal, that if someone was changing jobs, like going from being an engineer to a consultant, They could call themselves aspiring strategy consultant, future strategy consultant, seeking strategy consultant opportunities. But guess what? You have already been a strategy consultant. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So in that case, you can just flat out call yourself a strategy consultant because you've been there and you've done that. Okay.
Okay, got it.
So take credit for what you've done. And then for all of Vishal's classmates, even if you haven't done the job you want yet, at least signal to recruiters, that's where I'm headed. Again, recruiters are not, psychics that can't read the future. All they know is what you tell them. And so you have to get that keyword into that key section. Okay, so that's the first step, Vishal. Now, the next thing that recruiters search for is skills. Can Vishal actually do this job? What do you think are the top important skills for management consulting, Vishal?
Probably client interactions, so persuasion or strategic thinking, analytical skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good to me. And then what if I said, as a savvy consultant, you don't want to guess at this. This is way too important to just make a hypothesis and hope for the best. Instead, you want to get the actual skills straight from recruiters. And what if I told you, Vishal, that there is somewhere on LinkedIn where recruiters are giving you those keywords every single day? Where do you think that might be?
In the job descriptions, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. And it's so funny because I got to confess, as a hiring manager at Khan Academy, I write the world's worst job descriptions. They're so long, they have 1,000 bullet points. But your job is to basically build X-ray vision to see through all that nonsense to the things that actually matter. And so exactly like you were talking about, they're going to have keywords like business goals, market goals, user acquisition, marketing strategies, all the things that make up the specific experience of doing this job. Now, how would you like, Vishal, instead of sorting through these one by one, what if you could have an algorithm that would actually pull out all of your most important keywords into a curated list? Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay, so let's do it. Because again, as you already are seeing, it is such a busy lifestyle to be an MBA. You don't have time for all this stuff one by one. You want to do it at scale. So I'm going to tell you about a separate site called jobscan.co, which is free to use for 2 searches a month. And the beautiful thing about JobScan is that it basically replicates the LinkedIn algorithm even before you touch your profile. So what we're going to feed it is the exact stuff that LinkedIn is going to see, which is all the keywords that exist on your profile today compared to all the things that you need to do in the job tomorrow. And Vishal, would you want to search for just one job here, or would you want to paste in multiple job descriptions?
Probably multiple.
And why is that?
Because while applying, we're trying to diversify the different companies that we apply to. So we should also diversify our profile.
Exactly. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and over-index on just one role. You want to cover the whole industry because you're going to see patterns start to emerge. Okay, Vishal, with your approval, I am going to press this blue button and I'm going to get you moving towards getting your dream job. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay, so this is the big moment of truth. JobScan's doing its thing, sort of simulating the LinkedIn algorithm. Here are the keywords that are important. Here are the ones that are on Vishal's profile. What's the overlap? Is it strong? Is it weak? And so at first it's going to say low match rate, and that's totally okay. The real trick, the real essence of being a smart job seeker is what are you going to do about it? And here's what it's telling you, Vishal. It's saying these are the things that appear over and over again in these job descriptions. Strategic direction, consulting experience, business requirements, ideation, marketing. And then here's how often they appear on your profile. Vishal, have you ever done anything with marketing, ideation, business requirements?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and now this is the last step. To make sure that you get credit for having done that stuff, you've got to get it onto your profile. So tell me, like maybe a little bit of a resume bullet, if you will, for a time that you did ideation or business requirements or marketing.
Yeah, so actually my LinkedIn isn't completely updated. I just have my jobs there, but I've ideated with the CFO of a large iron and mining company to help them transform their financial reporting process.
Yeah. Okay, I love that. You can just imagine the bullet writing itself, right? Led ideation session with CFO of a large mining company, leading to 5 new business ideas with an expected revenue impact of $5 million. And bam, you've got both of your audiences covered, right? The algorithm gets the keyword that it wants. The recruiter gets the impact that he or she wants. You've covered your bases. How hard was that, Vishal?
Not very hard at all.
Not very hard. So I know that you're just starting your journey at Vandy. And I know the last thing you probably want at this point after the first week of classes is more homework. But with all due apologies to your own professors, this may be the most important homework you ever do. And that is to get these keywords into the most important part of your visibility, which is your profile. Do you think you can do that, Vishal?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so here you go. There's no deadline, but the sooner you get it up, the sooner you get visible. So I highly recommend starting to incorporate. And for everyone else out there, follow in Vishal's footsteps. Run your own job scan, find out what you need to conquer, and then close that gap as fast as you can, and you'll be well on your way to being an obvious candidate. Thank you so much, Vishal. You rock this.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for everything.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. And so before we move on to the next section, I'm curious if there are any questions about profiles. You know, so often the profile is kind of this mysterious space. Like, what do I do with my cover photo? What do I do with my headshot? What about the about section? What about endorsements? If you have any questions whatsoever about the profile, feel free to raise your hand or ask in the chat. And again, just asking a question is enough to get you a free copy of my book. So let's pause for a moment and see if there are any questions about the LinkedIn profile. Minwoo says, can you talk a little bit more about session? Minwoo, when you say session, what were you referring to? Feel free to unmute your line. Oh, the about section. Yeah, absolutely. You got it. Okay, so the about section is this mysterious space. I'm so glad you asked about it because a lot of times students won't even include it. They'll just say, oh, I don't really have anything to say. What should I put in there? Well, again, recognize this key fact that the LinkedIn algorithm scans everything. And so any keywords, any content you can get into your profile absolutely counts. So what I recommend is that you really want to nail your about section for both of your key audiences, the recruiter and the algorithm. For the recruiter, notice first of all that the about section always starts in this condensed version with this little see more at the bottom. Given how fast recruiters have to work, it's unlikely they're going to expand it. So what you want to do is you want to have a really clear opening statement of here's what I can do for you. Again, responding to their need. And then maybe one really impressive bullet that says, whoa, even if you're doubtful about this guy, he just knocked your socks off. And again, that's for the human side of things. Then for the algorithm, because it can read everything instantly, you want to feed it the exact keywords that it's hungry for. So write out a job scan, paste it right in. And oh, by the way, if you want these nice little bullet points in your formatting, feel free to copy and paste right out of what I shared in the chat, because you can paste that into LinkedIn. And now the bullet points will help organize your section as well. So great question. I'm Minwoo. Please follow up afterwards for a copy of the book. Okay, Shreya says, do you need to post regularly about your field of work? So Shreyas, I'm going to ask you this question, and feel free to unmute to answer. When we go back to the source of truth, which is this LinkedIn recruiter screen, where LinkedIn recruiters are searching for talent all around the world, do you see anywhere, Shreyas, where recruiters can filter for how often you post?
No, I do not.
Okay, and then number two, if you were a recruiter, Shreyas, would you even care how often people are posting on LinkedIn?
I wouldn't.
Right. And again, I think you've already started to empathize with recruiters, which is they are going at the speed of light. They don't have time to think about, oh, is Shreyas posting and liking and sharing? The question is, can Shreyas do the job? And if so, can I reach out to him and get him doing the job for us? That's all they care about. Okay.
Got it. Perfect. I'm happy with that answer.
There
Thank you.
are plenty of reasons to post, and we can talk about that later in terms of like networking with alumni and building your professional brand and all that. But in terms of short-term impact, only the things we're covering today are going to have an immediate impact on your visibility. Okay, Shreyas?
Got it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Great question. Thank you for calling it out, because I'll be honest, LinkedIn, like any social network, can be this massive rabbit hole that you go down, you come back 5 hours later, and you have nothing to show for it. And I know that business school is too busy to waste time on that stuff. So thanks for calling that out.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
we're going to take 2 final questions and then we're going to move on. So let's take a question from Preeti. Preeti, feel free to unmute. Would love to hear your question live.
Hey, so I had a question about the title.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if someone's really clear on becoming a consultant, a strategy consultant, they could put that up there. But what if someone is still, looking at 2 different things? Then do you keep switching between the roles every time you apply to a new company?
Yeah, great question, Preeti. And out of curiosity, what are the 2 roles that you're considering?
I'm considering product management and tech consulting.
Cool. I love that. And so here's the nice thing. Recruiters, again, are not out to get you. They're not trying to say like, oh, how can we find some way to reject Preeti? Instead, they're just trying to figure out, do you make sense? Are you obvious in that quick way that we discussed? And to me, product management and tech consulting go hand in hand.
Okay.
A great product manager is kind of like an internal consultant who's trying to understand the client, trying to understand how things work, trying to get stuff done. And so if you list those 2 jobs together, totally makes sense. Now, Preeti, if you had said, I want to be a product manager or a salesperson, or maybe start my own company, why would that be worrisome to a recruiter?
They think this person doesn't know what they're doing.
Exactly. Too scattered, right? And
Yeah.
it's not credible that it can be good at all those things either. So
Yeah.
as long as the jobs cluster together around a shared skill set, totally fine. But if you're too scattered and you haven't done your homework in terms of what's really right for you, talk to some more alumni, find out what those paths are like, and then start to cross off some things that aren't a good fit. And then when you're
Okay.
more focused, then build out your profile. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Great question. I love that. And then one final question from Palak. Palak says, if I'm interested in corporate finance roles, what should my headline say? And this is why it's so critical, Palak, to really dig into what these jobs are, because you've got to figure out what is the job title that I want next. Corporate finance is the role, but am I a finance manager? Am I FP&A? Like, what is the thing that I want to be found for? If you can start to dig up on LinkedIn, okay, here are all the alumni from Vandy who've gone into finance, here's what the roles are, and figure out 90% of the time it's one title, that's the one you want to focus on. And so you definitely do want to do a little homework, Palak, before you build out that headline. Great question. Okay, everyone who asked a question, definitely follow up to get a copy of the book at the very end. And for now, I've got a question for you all. So let's go to the next section. We've talked about recruiters being really eager for candidates. Candidates who are putting themselves out there, who are clearly interested in working at their company. And to prove it to you, check this out. This is the recruiter screen that we were talking about, which every recruiter in the world pays $10,000 per year per seat to access. So that tells you how serious they are about LinkedIn. But you can see the plight of recruiters here, because even after applying my initial filters, I still have 43,000 candidates. And guess what? I only have about 30 in-mails on average to send to those candidates. And in-mails are the way that I reach out, the way that I engage with a prospect. So what do? I apply these filters at the top to make sure that I'm filtering for candidates who are really worthy of getting that in-mail. Specifically, I want people who are actually looking for new jobs, not people who are just happy in their current job. I want people who are plugged into my company because that makes them easier to lure in. And I want people who are following my company on LinkedIn because that's a really powerful signal. So to demonstrate how these work, no one needs to volunteer now to go live, but just chat in the name of a job in a company that you like. So it could be, I want to be a product manager at Google. I want to be a product marketer at Apple. I want to be a consultant at McKinsey. I want to be a banker at Goldman. Whatever you're excited about, just give me something to work with in the chat. And if you do that, I will also send you a copy of the book just for putting yourself out there a little bit. Again, you don't have to volunteer. Just give me the name of a company, the name of a job, and I'll show you how you would optimize your profile to demonstrate your eagerness. All right, Abhishek, you were first out of the gates. So Abhishek says, financial analyst at Google. Well, how would you show Google that you're in the game? 3 ways. So first one is, all things being equal, I would prefer candidates who are actively looking for jobs, who are going to respond to my email, versus someone who's totally happy and will never respond, which is a waste of that precious resource. So the first thing you've got to do is come to your profile, come to this open to work section, and let them know, hey, I'm in the game. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can put in the job title you want, financial analyst. You can put in the specific style of work you want, on-site, hybrid, remote, Mountain View, California, where I live, AKA Googletown, USA. lets Google know that you're focused on moving here. Let them know your timeline, even whether you're going after full-time or internships. And yes, by the way, for anyone who might be currently sponsored, kind of looking on the down low, you can share this information broadly on LinkedIn or only with recruiters and only with the recruiters who aren't at your current company. So a nice way to get a little peace of mind when you share this signal. So that's number one. Please, 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 Abhishek, Vishal, Pramod, everyone, turn on open to work because it takes 5 seconds now for a lifetime of opportunity afterwards. Number two, all things being equal, I, as a recruiter at Google, would rather talk to someone who knows someone on the inside versus a total stranger. Again, that's just human nature. Having that mutual connection makes it easier to get introduced to you, to do a background check on you, just makes my job easier. So if you want to have lots of connections at lots of companies, you could do it one by one, and that's great, but it will take a while. If you want to be a savvy and efficient MBA, you can employ the following hack, which is you come over to My Network, and here's the link in the chat. You scroll on down to the left-hand section where it says Add Personal Contacts. And then all you do is you import your address books. Because what is your Gmail address book or your Outlook address book or your phone's address book, but a collection of everyone you already know, everyone you've corresponded with in the past. And so if you want to go from 100 connections in just a few companies to 5,000 connections at pretty much every company under the sun, get credit for everyone you know before you spend even a second building new connections. And the fastest way to do that is by importing your address books. So that's where you go for that particular hack. And then third and finally, engaging with Talent Brand. What is that about? Well, it's a simple idea that Google only wants to talk to people who want to work at Google. Like, why should I waste one of my scarce emails on someone who really wants to be in finance or consulting or somewhere else? And the way that you signal that is super easy. You look up the company you're excited about, Google, Goldman, McKinsey, whatever, and all you do is click this little following button, and with one click, you are now on their radar screen. And so the bottom line is, if you don't want to be filtered out, but instead filtered in, make yourself eager, make yourself obvious. All these steps take literally just minutes or seconds, but give you massive upside, which is the definition of high ROI. So let me pause there for a second. Any questions about any of these filters? How you would use them, anything you're worried about? Feel free to raise your hand, feel free to ask in the chat. Okay, I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Hopefully the silence means that you're all working on them right now. But again, you can turn these things on instantaneously and start enjoying the benefits immediately. Hey, Chris, go for it.
Yeah, just a quick question about the job title. So for example, you're looking for a strategy job, but there can be 10 ways to describe that title. For example, strategy manager, business strategy analyst, right? Strategy consulting, business strategy manager. So I am curious to learn that if the LinkedIn algorithm is smart enough to do all those natural language processing, so that you just need to put one or two titles there. And
great question. So you can definitely include multiple titles. So like, for example, if you want to be a product manager, sometimes they call it program manager. Microsoft calls their PMs program managers. You could say product manager and program manager focus. That's totally fine. Obviously, if there's dozens of titles, that gets a little tricky. One thing I would recommend is coming over to LinkedIn's job search and just try to figure out like, what is the 80-20 rule? Like, what are like 80% of the jobs called? And what you'll see here is that like there may actually be a majority of jobs under like the analyst title, for instance. So like a lot of business school grads come in at the analyst or associate level. Maybe that's what you want to focus on. And the other way you can do it, besides looking on the jobs board, is just look at alumni. Go to the alumni tool for Vanderbilt, see everyone who's in consulting. And if you figure out that 80% of alums have the same title, that's probably the one you want to focus on. So really go for the lowest hanging fruit. Okay, Chris?
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. So now let's go to our next step, which is recruiters want validated candidates. So everything we talked about so far, recruiters busy. They want someone who fits the mold, someone who's clearly eager. But at the end of the day, the best possible thing for a recruiter is to have zero risk at all. Because imagine this. Imagine that you are a recruiter who brings someone in for a job and that person is woefully underqualified, a totally poor fit. How's that going to look for you? You can imagine now you're worrying about your own job security. You're worried about working on your own LinkedIn profile. Well, to avoid that fate, one of the things that recruiters love the most is to hire people who are validated. And what do I mean by validated? Well, think about the fact that the vast majority of people apply for jobs online through career sites and job boards. But if you look at who gets hired, very few of those people get hired commensurate with the number of applications. And yet, this tiny minority of job seekers up here, fewer than 1 in 10, are being referred. A referral is someone on the inside of a company going to bat for you and saying, Chris is awesome, Vishal is awesome, Abhishek is awesome. And then, even though they make up such a tiny percentage of the pool, they soak up the vast plurality of all hires across America. And why would that be true? Again, why take a risk on a total stranger when you could choose a candidate who's already vetted by someone you know and trust, by a current colleague? That is the power of a referral. And then the only question that remains is, okay, I get that, Jeremy, but how do I get a referral? So to show you the step-by-step process and give you a free book, all you've got to do is raise your hand right now. This is our last demo opportunity today, and I want to show you exactly how it works. Who's going to be our brave volunteer to close us out? Pramod, thank you so much. Feel free to unmute.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
how are
Jeremy.
you?
Doing good, Jeremy. Thanks. How are you?
Great. And how do you say your first name? I just want to make sure I'm not messing it up.
It's Pramod.
Pramod, my apologies.
No
Okay.
worries.
So Pramod, I want you to really help us close out this session with some fireworks. So don't go easy on me. Tell me a company that maybe every MBA wants to work for that's really hard to get a job at.
Okay, so to be honest, I'm not from the MBA class. I'm
Oh,
doing
my
data
apologies.
science.
Okay.
But my background is in finance and I'm doing data science. So I want to work in banking or probably like go into quantitative analytics or into fintech. So I don't know, this doesn't answer your question directly. So I went through, I did a bit of research and found out that Bank of America hires a lot of Vanderbilt students. So I would start from there.
But that's too easy, Pramod. Now you are going on easy on me because if you know there are lots of alumni there, that's a great place to go after.
Yeah.
But what about a harder place? What about BlackRock? I saw that you had shared that before.
Yeah.
You know, BlackRock, the name just sounds hard to get into, right? It sounds like a fortress practically.
Yeah.
So let's find some way to crack that rock and get you an interview there. Okay, Pramod?
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. So by definition, the first thing that you have to know is if I want a referral, who could actually refer me? And so you're going to start by figuring out who even works there, who's on the inside today. And one little known thing about LinkedIn that's so powerful is for any company in the world, they can actually give you a free employee directory just by clicking on the number of employees. And so sure enough, 24,000 people at BlackRock who could be potential referrers. But now Pramod, you are a savvy student, especially a data scientist. You don't want to waste time going one by one. Who would be the lowest hanging fruit to give you a referral at BlackRock?
Someone who studied at Mandy before.
Exactly, yeah. So
Yeah.
let's start with the power of the network, right? So you come over here to the all filters section, which gives you all these advanced filters. And you say, show me someone from Vandy. So one of the things I want to call out, by the way, is that LinkedIn is a little weird. It actually considers Owen to be a separate school from the overall mothership university. So you want to get credit for both Owen and then also Vanderbilt. And then if you have an undergraduate university, you can put that in as well. So for example, Delhi University, as we were talking about before, we click show, and sure enough, more than 50 Vandy folks already on the inside. And I want you to walk me through the process a little bit, Pramod. Who would you want to reach out to here, first of all?
Could you I don't know. I don't think reaching out to director would be a good idea, right?
And why not?
I really don't think that's a good idea. I mean, they might be like having a busy schedule.
Okay.
I don't
And
know, like
here's an interesting insight, Pramod, because I've kind of gotten to that level in my own career where I'm seeing fewer and fewer outreaches from students. If you are worried about reaching out to the director, who else is worried about reaching out to the director?
someone who's working in the target role that I'm trying to get into.
No, all of your classmates. In fact, all of your peers
Oh.
around the world, right?
Yeah.
And I can promise you, because I do a lot of these webinars, every student thinks the same way. Oh, I better not reach out to the senior guy. It's too scary or it's too high up. And as a result, as a senior guy at Khan Academy, I never hear from students. And then meanwhile, the junior person hears from everyone, they get overwhelmed and they're like, forget it, I'm not going to talk to any more Vandy students. So
Yeah.
don't ever feel like, oh my goodness, I can't reach out. In fact, not only might Joseph have more time to chat with you, if Joseph recommends you at BlackRock as a director, do you think you're going to get an interview, Pramod?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You better believe it, right? If like the head
Yeah.
of the team says, I want to talk to this guy, you're getting an interview. So let's be bold. Let's go for Joseph. Now, if we want to get in touch with Joseph, what are you going to do? Walk me through the steps.
I don't know. Probably just go through his profile, as in just to see if it's a good match.
Okay.
First.
Obviously, he's got a great, comp
yeah.
sci math background, just like you do. So that's an awesome match.
Yeah. So that sounds good. I do recommend sending like connecting him first or just sending him a message first.
Yeah, so we'll connect and we'll send a
Yeah.
message as part of it.
Oh,
And
yeah,
always send a
that's-
message. That's like the bottom line with LinkedIn. It is not worth using LinkedIn if you don't send messages because people just don't know who you are. So always start with a message. And then what are you going to say in this message? How are we going to strike up a conversation?
That I'm a graduate student studying data science at the Vanderbilt, and I came across your profile. No, sorry, BlackRock is like one of my target companies there.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay. And I was hoping that you'd be free for a chat, or just I don't know,
Yeah.
to share some insights about the company, the recruiting process, and
Yeah. I'm just going to sort of leverage some of that language you use it for in terms of like wanting to be respectful, acknowledging that he's busy, right?
Yeah.
Any chance you have even 10 minutes for a quick Zoom chat, right?
Yeah.
I know I could learn so much. And I love this approach. I love it so much. I'm going to share it with all your classmates in the chat because I want them to actually use this as a template when they go forward. So first of all, why did you start with I'm currently a Vandy student? Like, why does that even matter?
Because like he wants to know, like the first thing when someone reaches out to you, you want to know where they are, like who is this person that's sending you?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're all trained as kids, no matter where we grew up. Be
Yeah.
careful of strangers. Don't talk to people you don't know. And the only way to deactivate that stranger force field is to say, hey, we're actually part of the same world. We share this really common bond, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're focused on his company and you're interested in learning. You're not asking for too much time. All of that is great. So I love that approach. Okay, now it's time to talk to Joseph. We're going to do a little role play. Okay, Pramod?
Oh,
So I know this is going to sound crazy, but like just go in because, and by the way, I want to do this because no one did this for me when I was in business school. And I had to learn it all the hard way by making mistakes. And I don't want you to suffer that way. So I want you and all your classmates to see how this is done starting today. Okay, so we're going to have a little chat. You get to kick it off, Pramod. What do you want to say to Joseph at the beginning of the conversation?
I just beginning of the conversation, I just introduce myself. But before that, I would also just start something that's common for us. Like start with like small talk, and then just move into a more formal introduction.
Yeah. And everyone in the chat, please root on Pramod. This is incredibly tough. He is in the hot seat right now. So
Yeah,
send a lot of love his way.
help me out
Okay.
there. Yeah.
I love that. And so great to meet you, Pramod. So excited to hear from a Vandy student. I got to tell you, I haven't heard from a Vandy student in years. So when you reached out, I was just so thrilled. I'm always telling my team, we got to hire more Vandy kids, but they never listen to me. Okay, how can I help you, Pramod? Okay, if you've got ideas for Pramod, don't leave him hanging. This is your classmate here. Send him ideas. What questions would you ask? How would you warm up the conversation with Joseph? Let us know in the chat. How about this, Pramod? What if you started by just sort of like getting his story? Like, it's great to meet you, Joseph. Like, I'd love to learn about your journey. Like, how did you go from Vandy to BlackRock?
Yeah. So I'll just basically like get him to like explain about his experience, like what made him join BlackRock, and what kind of stuff that he has done before. But before going into the interview, I'll probably do my own study about his profile.
Yeah.
And also study about the company. So, I won't just waste his time on like stupid questions.
I'm gonna tell you something interesting right now.
Yeah.
So many students have the mindset you do, which is I got to come in and I got to like know everything about the company. But honestly, do you think Joseph really wants to tell you all about BlackRock? Or is there something that Joseph would rather talk about? Just think about human nature. What's Joseph's favorite topic of conversation?
The fact that I'm also from Vandy. So that
Yeah, and also
like, yeah.
himself, right? Everyone
Yeah.
wants to share their story. Like that's an
Yeah.
innate human desire to pay it forward, to share my journey with someone else. And so I think just saying, hey, like Amrita was saying in the chat, what made you join BlackRock? Why did you choose product management? Like getting him to open up about himself, that is the best way you can begin. And you don't need to do a million hours of research to have that kind of conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
So now he's talking about himself. Oh, okay. So, when I was in Vandy, I was majoring in computer science and I saw that tech was changing finance. I really want to be a part of that. BlackRock is just like the dominant player in the space. I wanted to be a part of something huge. It's been amazing ever since. What other questions do you have for Mode?
That's a very good question. So I'd start with like, what are the like where data science stands in the company? Like it might be a company where they don't use data science at all. So it would be like quite pointless for me to like try to get there because they don't have a big data science department within them.
Right.
I would like try with something there and then dive into like to see if they have any opportunities like summer internships, whether how the recruitment process works. And also since I'm an international student, whether they give out sponsorships.
Yeah.
But I would just basically start to get an understanding about, where data science, like how much of data science is actually used in that company first.
Yeah. I love that. Now you're totally going with a promote. I can just hear a change in your voice.
Yeah.
You're going with curiosity. Like these are the things you genuinely want to know. And the biggest mistake I see students make all the time is they're going through these things robotically. Here are the questions that career services told me to ask. I'm going to go check, check, check. Goodbye. Have a nice day. When in fact, a really great conversation is natural. It's based on things that you're passionate about. And if you want to know that, feel free to ask. So I love that promote. Okay, now time for the moment of truth. Joseph says, well, I got to run to a big meeting in a second. Anything else I can do for you before I run? Now this is the big moment, Pramod. How do you get me to give you a referral before I hang up that phone?
I'm
sorry,
actually I haven't done.
I'm gonna give you 2 copies of my book because you are earning it today. You are earning it through your incredible investment here. So this is the last question. Okay, I'm gonna give you the big sort of cheat code, if you will, to the video game of job searching, which is you've got to get Joseph to empathize with you. If it's purely transactional, here's some information, nice to know you, goodbye. It's not going to go anywhere. The way you get him to empathize is you change the frame. Instead of saying, hey, give me a referral, which is a little transactional, you say, hey, Joseph, I really got to appreciate everything you shared with me today. Your path is the exact path I want to follow down. I want to be in your shoes someday. I also know that BlackRock is just incredibly hard to get into. If you were in my shoes right now back at Vandy, what would you do to get the best shot at an interview? And in my experience, 9 times out of 10, when you get the alum to empathize with you and remember, oh yeah, it's so hard to break in, they're going to be honest. They're going to say, you know what? I got hired through a referral from a Vandy alum. My whole team got hired through referrals from other people. That is the most powerful path to get in. Would you be interested in a referral from me? And now, even without calling out explicitly, you've opened that door. How does that sound, Pramod?
Yeah, that sounds great. I feel like writing down what you just said.
Okay, yeah. If you were in my shoes, is the critical language there. Change the frame. Okay, so now we're running out of time, but Pramod, I got to give you a massive shout out. Well, everyone send some digital fireworks Pramod's way because he just showed us the most important thing in job seeking. Again, let's come back to the data. You can play this game over here and have less than 1% chance of getting hired, or you can play a way better game with 10x the results. I know which game I'd rather play with my career on the line. I hope you'll join me in playing it too. Okay, last thing that I want to cover real quick is this question. Which of these things is definitively worse about LinkedIn profiles compared to resumes? Like, obviously, I'm a LinkedIn fanboy. I used to work there, but I'll be the first to admit that one of these things is markedly inferior about profiles versus your CV. What do you think it is? Is it A, B, or C? Give me your best guess. A is lack of customization for different roles. B is limited to a certain amount of content. C is only gets searched occasionally. Let me know in the chat which of these things is worse about LinkedIn profiles. So Yongzhu says C, Fabiano says C, Vandy says C, everyone's saying C, but guess what? Unlike your resume sitting on your hard drive, which never gets searched unless you apply, your LinkedIn profile is searched millions of times a day. That's how much recruiting traffic is on the site. And B, unlike your resume, which has to fit on an 8.5 by 11-inch page, totally arbitrary, your LinkedIn profile can be as long and as detailed as you want. But unfortunately, unlike a good resume, it cannot be customized. You know, a great resume is customized for product management, consultant, banking, whereas with your profile, you're stuck with just one, except for a few lucky international students who can diversify their career portfolio, because instead of focusing on just one path, you can actually focus on multiple paths, especially if you are looking for jobs in countries where more than one language is spoken. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, that you are looking for consulting jobs in New York City and finance jobs in your hometown of Sao Paulo. You could build out an amazing consulting profile in English that American recruiters would see. And then you could come over here, come to the right-hand section and say, add a profile in another language. And I could choose my hometown Portuguese, and I could build a completely separate profile all in Portuguese, all dedicated to finance. And then here's the beautiful thing about LinkedIn. LinkedIn will only show the English language version to the recruiters in New York, only the Portuguese version to the finance recruiters in Sao Paulo, and they never know the difference, all through the auto magic of LinkedIn. And that's how only international students get this bonus of having more than one LinkedIn profile. So take advantage of that if you're interested. Okay, we're gonna close up with some bonus goodies for you. So hang on one more moment. And I also wanna answer any lingering questions. I'm happy to stay on the line as long as you want. Again, you can ask questions by raising your hand, by chatting them in, whatever you prefer. Quick reminder of what we've covered. The US hiring process loves to call itself a meritocracy, but at the end of the day, it comes down to human judgment and the intuition of human recruiters. And so what does that mean? It means, first of all, you got to find out where there are sponsorship opportunities. And you can do that by following in the footsteps of alumni from your undergraduate alma mater. Number two, you got to work really hard to stand out in a crowded field by understanding the recruiter's needs. They want obvious candidates, so you make yourself obvious on your profile. They want eager candidates, so you demonstrate how excited you are by making sure you're open to work. And then finally, they want validated candidates, so you get that referral that gives you a 10x advantage. And then finally, if you're open to opportunities at home, consider a second profile, which only you have access to. Now, to get you on your way, a couple of bonus goodies. Number one, if you want to book today by asking a question or by volunteering, please, please, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you and get that over to you. Just send me a personalized note so I know that you are going to get the book. And then even if you didn't volunteer, no worries. I would love to stay connected with you, hear your feedback on the session, and answer any questions that you have afterwards. Connect with me in that link. Then as a massive shout out to Courtney and Lacey and all of your amazing Vandy staff. You have access to the only LinkedIn course in the world designed by LinkedIn Insiders. It's free for students at every other university, except for Vandy students who get it on the house. And so you guys can get it using the link in the chat. And it's not just for a year or for 2 years, it's for your entire career, all free, courtesy of your Career Center. And then third and finally, if you have a chance to read my book and leave a review online, I would be happy to give you a review of your own profile using the link in the chat. Okay, I know we're at time, but again, I'm happy to stay online, answer any questions that might still be lingering about, Jeremy, should I buy LinkedIn Premium? Or Jeremy, what should I be doing with X, Y, or Z on LinkedIn? Feel free to raise your hand or ask in the chat. And then if there are no further questions, I'm going to bring it back to Courtney.
I'll give y'all a few seconds. Do you have some questions to ask since we have an expert?
Right. I know everyone's like rushing off to classes and everything else going on, so I totally get it, but totally feel free to ask questions now or even afterwards. All right, I think folks are good.